I want you to take a look around the room you're sitting in right now. Don't just glance at it. Really observe it. The scuffs on the floor, the pile of mail on the counter, the way the light filters through that window. Maybe you're in a truck, or a cubicle, or a house that's seen better days. Whatever the geography, I want you to realize something that might be a little uncomfortable to hear. That room isn't a container you're trapped in. It's a physical manifestation of your current mental landscape. You see, we've been sold this idea that the environment is something that just happens to us. We think we're like chess pieces being moved around on a board we didn't build. We talk about the neighborhood or the economy or the climate as if these are these massive independent forces that have us pinned down. But that's mainstream static. That's the talk of someone who still thinks they're an employee of reality. Here's the fundamental shift we need to make today. Your environment is your external skin. Just like your physical body is the most immediate render of your energy, the room you're in, the city you live in, and the people you surround yourself with are the secondary and tertiary layers of that same render. It's all one continuous field of projection. You are effectively living inside a spatial sandbox that you are constantly updating in real time. Think about a movie theater. When you're sitting there watching a film, you don't blame the screen for the plot being bad. You don't get mad at the white fabric for showing a tragedy. You know the story is coming from the projector behind you. But in your life, you've been screaming at the screen for years. You've been trying to move the furniture, change the job, or run to a new city, wondering why the same old static keeps following you there. It follows you because you're carrying the projector. If you want to change the rendering zone, you have to stop trying to paint the screen and start looking at the slides you're feeding into the machine. We're moving past the who and into the where, and I'm telling you right now, the where is a lot more flexible than you've been led to believe. Let's drop an iron anchor into this, something factual to keep the ego from drifting away into the clouds. Have you ever heard of the Mycelium network? Scientists call it the wood wide web. If you go out into a forest, you see all these individual trees, oaks, pines, maples, and they look like they're just standing there on their own, competing for sunlight. But if you look underneath the dirt, there's a massive, complex network of fungal threads connecting every single tree in that forest. This network isn't just a passive bystander. It's an intelligence. It moves nutrients from the healthy trees to the sick ones. It sends chemical warnings about pests. It literally engineers the environment to ensure the survival of the whole system. Now, here's where it gets interesting for us. If you take a tree out of its natural environment and put it in a pot in a city office, it usually dies. Not because it doesn't have water or sun, you give it those, but because it's been disconnected from the intelligence grid. It no longer knows how to render its health because it's lost its connection to the collective architecture of the forest. You are exactly like that tree. You think you're an isolated data point, struggling against a cold, indifferent world, but you are plugged into a metaphysical mycelium. Your environment, the very air you breathe and the ground you walk on, is a living, breathing extensions of a collective unconscious grid. But here's the Texas grit twist. While the tree is a passive participant in its network, you are the programmer. We've discovered through modern epigenetics that the environment actually rewrites your genetic code. If you're in a high-stress, toxic environment, your cells start to render survival mode. If you're in a coherent, authorized environment, they render vitality. Mainstream science says the environment changes the person. The archive says the person authorizes the environment that then echoes back to the person. It's a feedback loop, a mirror effect. You chose your current coordinate point, your family, your location, your era, not because you were being punished, but because those specific environmental frictions provided the perfect soil for your primary operator to grow. You needed the specific grit of your current life to sharpen the edge of your consciousness. So, stop looking at your surroundings as an obstacle. Start looking at them as biofeedback. If your environment feels chaotic, it's because your internal mycelium is currently sending out a signal of chaos. The good news? You're the one holding the keyboard. You can change the chemical memo you're sending to the grid whenever you're ready to stop playing the victim. Now, I want to talk to you about your five senses. We've been taught from the time we were toddlers that our eyes, ears, and nose are like windows. We think they're these transparent openings that let the world inside our heads. But that's a fundamental misunderstanding of the hardware. In the archive, we understand that your senses are actually translators. They aren't windows, they're a haptic suit. Think about a high-end virtual reality rig. When you put on that suit and the gloves vibrate when you touch a digital wall, or the headset shows you a mountain range, is that mountain real? No, it's a stream of data. But the suit is so good at translating that data into feeling and sight that your brain accepts it as a physical fact. Your physical body is that suit. Your eyes don't see a tree. They pick up a specific frequency of light, and your internal software interprets that frequency as green and bark and leaves. Your ears don't hear music. They interpret vibrations in the air. Why does this matter? Because if you understand that the environment is just data being translated by your suit, you realize that you aren't a victim of the scenery. You're the one writing the translation protocol. Most of you are running on an outdated OS. You're using a translation protocol that was handed to you by your parents, your teachers, and the 2026 news cycle. You're looking at a world of infinite potential, but your sensory software is programmed to only see scarcity, threat, and limitations. It's like having the world's most powerful gaming PC and using it to play Pong. You've got a multi-dimensional rendering engine capable of building galaxies, and you're using it to recreate the same boring office and the same tired arguments every single morning. And here is the grit of it. You can change the translation protocol at any second. If you start to change your expectations, and I'm not talking about wishful thinking, I'm talking about a deep structural shift in what you assume is possible. Your senses will actually start to pick up different data. You'll start to see opportunities that were literally invisible to you yesterday. You'll hear conversations differently. Your spatial sandbox will begin to re-index itself because the user has updated the software. You have to stop treating the world like it's solid. It's not. It's pliable. It's more like a thick liquid that responds to the pressure of your belief. If you push on it with the belief that life is a struggle, the liquid hardens into a wall. If you push on it with the belief that I'm an authorized operator, the liquid parts and lets you through. So, let's look at the friction in your current sandbox. Maybe you're looking at your bank account and you're feeling that cold spike of panic. Or you're looking at a relationship that's gone sour, or a body that feels like it's failing you. Your first instinct is to act like a thermometer. A thermometer is a passive instrument. It just reads the temperature of the room. It says, yep, it's cold in here, and then it just sits there, being cold. Most people spend their entire lives being thermometers. They look at their environment, they see the facts, and they allow their internal state to match the external temperature. The economy is bad, so I feel stressed. My partner is angry, so I feel defensive. The world is chaotic, so I feel hopeless. That is employee logic. That is letting the screen tell the projector what to show. But you were designed to be the thermostat. A thermostat doesn't give a damn what the temperature currently is. It doesn't read the room to find its own identity. It commands the room. It sets a target frequency, and then it forces the furnace to kick on until the environment matches the internal setting. I want you to ask yourself, are you reading the temperature, or are you setting it? If your life feels cold, it's because you've allowed your internal authorized frequency to drop. You've let the static of the world convince you that you don't have the power to move the needle. But look at the credentials we talked about last time. If you are a non-physical entity currently focused through this interface, then you are the furnace. You are the source of the heat. The only reason the room is cold is because you've forgotten to flip the switch. Why would you choose a cold environment? Why would a sovereign operator choose a sandbox filled with struggle? Because you wanted the resistance. You didn't come here to play a game where you already have infinite health and infinite money from the start. Where's the growth in that? You came here to see if you could start with nothing and authorize your way out. You came here to see if you could be a thermostat in a blizzard. The struggle isn't a mistake. It's the gym equipment you requested. But you spent so much time complaining about how heavy the weights are that you've forgotten the whole point was to lift them. Here is your directive for the next week. Stop being a thermometer. Stop looking at the facts of your environment as if they are written in stone. They are written in light, and you are the one holding the lens. When you walk into a room, whether it's your office, your kitchen, or a courtroom, I want you to realize that the room is waiting for you to tell it what it is. It is a spatial sandbox that is currently rendering based on your default settings. It's time to update the OS. I want you to look at the scuffs on the floor, the bills on the table, and the limitations of your city. And I want you to say to them, not out loud, but with the full weight of your 95% authority, you are a translation of my past. I am authorizing a new render. Don't try to fix the environment. Set the thermostat. Decide right now what the internal temperature of your life is going to be. Are you going to be abundant? Are you going to be vital? Are you going to be unstoppable? Once you set that frequency, don't keep checking the thermometer every 5 minutes to see if it's working. That's doubt. That's employee static. Just hold the frequency. Trust the Mycelium Grid to do its job. Trust the Haptic Suit to start translating the new data. You aren't a guest in this world. You are the landlord. You chose this coordinate point. You chose this era. You chose this struggle. Now, choose the victory. The sandbox is yours. The projector is on. Next time, we're going to look at the construction materials of your reality, the very thoughts that act as the atoms of your environment. Clear your mirror. Command your light. I am the speaker. Welcome to the Validity.
Authorizing architect access. The signal is valid.